Welcome to O-Scale Central and the O-Scale 2-Rail online program. This program is devoted to O-Scale 2-Rail model railroading. It's provided free to members of the O-Scale 2-Rail community as part of O-Scale Central's service to the scale. Hold on one second. I'm David Vaughn. For starters, we record these programs for later replay on YouTube. By remaining on the conference, you're advised of the recording and consenting to be recorded. Those who don't agree to be recorded should excuse yourselves from the call at this time. Thank you. All right, it's May 13, 2023. As indicated, this program is devoted to O-Scale 2-Rail model railroading. It's provided free the O-Scale 2-Rail community. I'm David Vaughn. I'm the president of O-Scale Central. This program is produced by John Wubble, who handles both arrangements and programming and the technical parts of the program. Thank you very much for joining us. As indicated, the program is live, but it is recorded for later replay. To get information on how to see the recorded program on our YouTube channel, go to our website, which is oscalecentral.com, and we will make arrangements to make sure that the links are there. O-Scale Central is a nonprofit corporation, tax-exempt educational organization pursuant to IRS Section 501c3. Our mission is to promote 2-Rail O-Scale modeling and to promote O-Scale 2-Rail modelers. Our website, as indicated, oscalecentral.com, includes information about the scale, contains frequently asked questions and shortcuts on how to get started. We have a trademarked scale-wide searchable product and service guide on the website. It allows modelers to locate OS2R products and services. It is searchable, so if you decide you need to find out who's making O-Scale track, you simply type that in, and you can get sources for the people who produce that and how to find it. The website also offers a calendar of upcoming O-Scale 2-Rail events and lists O-Scale 2-Rail focused clubs, publications, Facebook pages, blogs, modular layout groups, and other O-Scale 2-Rail activities. We conduct outreach in the form of O-Scale 2-Rail clinics, displays, and layouts at NMRA conventions, railroad prototype modeler meets, and train shows. We provide literature about O-Scale 2-Rail for use by clubs, open houses, and individual modelers. We publish a quarterly journal, a monthly newsletter, and as indicated, these online programs. Through these programs, we work to keep the O-Scale 2-Rail community apprised of upcoming events and items of interest. We talk with people in O-Scale 2-Rail who are working to improve the scale. Some of our past guests on this program include Scott Mann of Sunset Third Rail, Norm Buckhart of Protocraft, Jay Criswell of Right of Way, and others. Our honored guest today builds on that tradition. We are a membership organization. We're doing good things for the scale and the folks that model in it. If you agree, go on the website, explore, and join us or contribute to our work. Our $24 dues are about the price of an Intermountain kit, and you don't have to perform any assembly. Our program for today will begin with a quick announcement on the O-Scale West show coming up in California. We'll then shift to a rundown on the O-Scale National Convention coming up June 8 to 11 in Denver. Convention head Bob Jellin will brief us on the exciting program and answer questions. And following Bob's presentation, we will talk with Andy Edelman, who is working with industry leader Atlas on their premier line. He has a great background, and he probably knows where a lot of the bodies are buried in two-rail O-scale over the years, perhaps because he buried a few, but we won't go into that. Before we start the program, it's our tradition to have attendees introduce themselves and give us an opportunity to thank you for your time and attention. The process is simple and it needs to be quick. When the letter of the alphabet with your last name is called, tell us your name, where you're from, and what you model. Introductions are not mandatory. If you prefer not to speak, there is no obligation. But the introduction is like this. I'm David Vaughn. I live in Clarksville, Maryland. I model Nickel Plate Road in Canandaigua Southern in O-scale two-rail. And what I'd like to do now is to start with the letters A of the alphabet. Any A's? B.
Jay Beckham, Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, O-scale, and modeling the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railway now.
Very good. Any more B's? C. D. E. F.
Andy Edelman.
Andy.
Fuller,
Okay. Andy,
Also from Clarksville, Maryland. Did not know that.
all right. Andy will be talking more with us later. F. Any F's?
This is Ed Fuller from Johnson City, Tennessee. Haven't picked a road name yet. I think it's going to be a fictitious name. Of course, modeling O-scale two-rail.
Thank you, sir. I suggest Clinchfield, but that's just me. Any more F's? How about G? H? I? J?
Ed Jekyll here in California, two-rail. I model Katy, Santa Fe, UP, Burlington, and some others.
Thank you. Any more J's?
Okay.
K?
Scott Krasowski, Austin, Texas, modern Santa Fe.
All right.
Larry Kurkowski, Jacksonville, Florida, and northern Minnesota ore railroads.
Very
Bob
good.
Tilland, northern Colorado, about an hour north of Denver. I model a 1995 regional railroad, a prairie railroad in North Dakota.
And I'm Michelle
Bells.
Kempelman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Hi, Michelle.
made it. I'm here. I'm director of Colorado Model Railroad Museum, and I'm at work, so it's loud, so I'll be muted.
Thank you. Any more K's? L? M?
John McInerney. I live in Venice, Florida. I model an O-scale two-rail, and I'm pretty eclectic. I model whatever I like, basically.
It's your railroad. Very good.
Our
Welcome
railroad.
back.
Thank you.
Any more M's? N?
In Joe Norman, Edmond, Oklahoma. I model the CB and Q.
Any more N's? O?
Ken Olson
P?
in
Oops. Oh, okay.
sorry. Yeah, Ken Olson. I'm in Minneapolis, doing a narrow gauge ON2, ON3 Black Hills operational freelance kind of thing.
Thank you. Any more O's? P?
Gary Patrick, in Kingston, near Kingston, New York, Pennsylvania, Fort Wayne Division, July 1944.
Very good. Any more P's?
P. Eric Peterson, Carmel, Indiana, Central Indiana. I'm on CSX and predecessors back to steam, O-scale two-rail.
Any more P's? Q's? R's?
Joe Rauenbuehler, Rosendale, Wisconsin, O-scale circus two-rail.
Very good. Any
Rich
more
Randall,
R's? Rich Randall.
Rich Randall, Milwaukee Road in Idaho, O2 rail.
Any more Rs? S.
Dave Schultz, Canyon, Minnesota. I modeled the Northern Pacific and Western Minnesota in Proto 48 2-rail O scale.
He just got over modeling in 12-inch to the foot as an engineer for many years, but he's now retired on that. Any more S's? P's.
Don Thiemann, Washougal, Washington, just across the river from Portland, Oregon. I modeled Chicago Northwestern and Union Pacific passenger operations out of Chicago in the 1950s in O scale.
Outstanding. Any more T's? U. V.
Gerald Vetter, go by Jerry, Lansing, Michigan, O scale 2-rail, and I model Chesapeake and Ohio, Pierre Marquette, and New York Central. And I target summer of 1950.
Very good. You need to talk with Eric Peterson, who has got some significant overlap in roads and geography and so on. All right. Any more V's, W's?
Rick Wright, Burke, Virginia, working right now on assembling motive power and freight consist for the Maybrook Gateway 1950.
Dan Weinhold, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, armchair modeling O scale 2-rail.
Excellent. Any more W's? X.
John Wobble, Chicago Great Western, O scale 2-rail.
Very good. Any more W's? X, Y.
Hi, Rick Yost, out of Philadelphia. I model Penn Central into the Conrail area, 2-rail O scale.
Thank you. Any other Y's, any Z's? Did we miss anybody, or is there anybody that wants to come back and introduce themselves after all that might have gotten missed on the way through? Otherwise, thank you all very much for attending. I know we have a number of repeat customers, and we take that as an endorsement. We must be doing a little bit right anyway. So thank you very much. You will have the opportunity to ask questions of Andy Edelman at the conclusion of the interview, and then at the end of the program, after questions for Andy, and as the last part of the program, we do have what we call good and welfare, which means people can make announcements or ask questions or otherwise contribute to the good of the scale. First item on the program is pretty brief because we don't have a lot of additional information on it. O Scale West has historically been one of the leading shows in the country. This May is the 31st annual O Scale West program. It's going to be May 25 through 27. And it's going to be in Santa Clara, California at the Hyatt Regency, which is where it's been for the last, I don't know how many years. And you can get more information, including registration, at O Scale West, all one word, oscalewest.com. That's their website, and we urge you to support the O Scale West show. It is one of the traditions. We do have coming up the O Scale National Convention for 2023. And this has been a challenging environment. We're still coming off of COVID. We still got a few things going on, but the program is rounding into place thanks to the hard work of a number of people, including Bob Jellin and Michelle Campema and Eric Peterson. And Bob Chellin, who is the chair of the convention, has an update for us. And we got a lot of exciting stuff going on, and Bob's going to tell us.
Well, thank you, David. Exactly 1 month from now, a lot of you are going to be saying, I'm glad I went. And a few of you might be saying, I wish I would have been there. We're that close to the convention. It's looking great. We have registration has really bumped up, and table rentals just in the past month or so, thanks to a lot of work from Eric and others in promoting where we're at and what we're doing. We have one of the best, if I would like to say, I think perhaps the best slate of breakout sessions of clinics that you'll ever see at an O-Scale convention. And some of the newer ones we've just added are Rick Trinkle, who, if you follow his Facebook page, is introducing what looks like a Thrall coal gondola. That's a 3D printed model. He's a new manufacturer, a cottage industry, if you will. He'll be giving a workshop on 3D printing and also introducing his new product at the O-Scale. We have Sarah Greisenbach, I think if I pronounce that correctly, coming from Austria. We have another modeler coming from South America. Each of them are going to be giving clinics. Just a great slate of programming. And I think Eric Peterson, you will be doing one on how to build a layout and looking a little bit at how to make it sectional, perhaps, or how to work with the dimensions that O-Scale sometimes gives us in terms of constraints and also opportunities. So
yes, I'll be talking about what are the real space requirements and what can we really do, and spaces like 30 by 30, 19 by 25, 14 by 21 feet are actually realistic size layouts for O-Scale 2 rail.
So I think that will be exciting. We have obviously we're calling it the June 8th through the 11th. It's important to know that the 8th is a Thursday. That will be when the layouts will set up. That will be when the vendors come in. The show itself runs Friday and Saturday. With the sessions, we're going to have a Thursday night social with the O-Scale Central group. Friday, Saturday will be the clinics, a banquet on Friday night, and the vendors. And then on Sunday, we're going to offer a few opportunities just to go out and ride the trains or watch the trains of Colorado. There's an awful lot to do. It's time to register if you haven't yet. That's what I'll say. And if you go to the website, we've really got that updated with everything from the schedule. I think one of the last things we'll be putting up are some of the commercial vendors, dealers, even Katie Coupler is coming with their new line of trucks.
And would you give us the website so people can get to it and get registered? You've muted yourself, Bob. Sorry.
Sorry. oscalenational.com.
oscalenational.com. It doesn't get much simpler than that. And a couple of things to flag. First of all, if you have not rail fanned in Colorado, and in 2021, I had the opportunity not only to attend the 21 convention, but to rail fan. Colorado is heaven for rail fanning. If you haven't gone or haven't gone recently, or even if you did go recently and you weren't able to cover it all, by all means, this is a good opportunity. Second, there are some hot topics on the clinics. Bob couldn't conceivably remember them all, but one of the hot tickets right now in O-Scale 2 rail is Soundtrack's Blue Nami. And we have I won't say it's exclusive, but we have one of the most up-to-date clinics coming up on Blue Nami from the fellow who is the marketing director for Soundtracks, who is really knowledgeable about this stuff. And if ever there was a system made for O-Scale, this is it. So the clinic program is just going to be superb. So that by itself will be enough, but there'll be a lot of opportunities for side conversations, for building new friends, for modeling particular items and getting together with people who are into that. Eric Peterson retired from CSX a few years ago as I'm going to blow the title, but basically a regional director of signaling. He's going to go to the convention, and if you want to find out anything you ever wanted to know about railroad signaling, he's your guy, and you can get him in a corner and ask all the questions you were afraid to ask anybody else. So this is going to be a really good deal. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of learning opportunities, a lot of social opportunities. There are some great layouts on the tour. There's a fellow named David Stewart who has the Appalachian in Ohio, and he is not only going to be on the tour, it's well worth it. But the convention car, which Bob Jellin is putting up right now, is for David Stewart's A&O. And those, after languishing for a little while, are starting to go fast. So it's like listening to the popcorn in a skillet. It starts slow, but it's building. And if you want one, now's the time to get it. So we really appreciate David's contribution to the convention. Does anybody have any questions for Bob or for Eric or Michelle? Okay, I'm gonna make one more plug. On the tour for layouts is the Colorado Model Railroad Museum in Greeley. And it is, I'm going to say 10,000 square feet. If I got that wrong, yeah, Michelle is going to correct me. She's given a thumbs up, so I got to be at least close.
It's a 5,500 square foot layout in a 10,000 square foot building, and we're staying open late for O-scalers, so you can come up and see Dave Stewart's layout, which is a 15-minute drive from here, and see ours too that evening on Saturday night. So it's a one-of-a-kind experience here. So
it really is. It's well worth it. It is in HO, although I keep poking Michelle to see if she will actually come clean with the announcement that they're going to do an ON3 layout on the back at some point. All I get from her is smiles in response to requesting that announcement. But it's a really good museum, and although I'm not an HO scale fan, it is well worth seeing. They got a lot of other stuff that goes along with it in the museum as well. All right, thank you. Anything more, Eric?
Yeah, I just wanted to say two things. First of all, that there's not only rail fanning in the Colorado area. For those of us that are traveling at some distance to get there by driving, there's all kinds of rail fanning between about any place in Denver. So I'd like to encourage people to do that. And second of all, if this is new to you or hearing something new or sounds pretty good now, please talk it up with your friends, your O-scale friends, and let's try and have as many people know about it and have an opportunity to get there and have a good time.
There will be, coming all the way from Oklahoma, a model of the Denver Union Station, which is really going to be cool. It's 10 feet, 12 feet wide, 4 feet deep. It's going to be front and center. There will be an actual tour of the 12-inch to the foot Denver Union Station. That's coming up. Michelle is coordinating that. All the way from Michigan, Schuyler Shippey and the Detroit Model Railroad Club is bringing a really well done modular layout, and we'll be talking about that as well. And there are so many things that are going on. Everybody is going to miss a few. We'll come in later. Bob will think of something. Michelle will think of something. If we don't get it, we'll get it as part of good and welfare. But this is a real opportunity, so don't miss it if you can.
A question for Michelle. Is Ed from the UP shop going to speak again?
unfortunately, no, because he's going to have the big boy on the road that day. He got pulled off. He was our banquet speaker until 3 days ago when Union Pacific changed everything up and decided they needed the big boy in Omaha. So we are working on a really cool speaker. We have 2 that look really amazing. So unfortunately, you won't see Ed unless you're driving across Nebraska on the way here. You will see the big boy. So they haven't announced that yet, though. So stays here for a day or two.
He is a very entertaining speaker, and we have been very sorry to see that that he had to be pulled off. We haven't actually thought about sabotaging the big boy in order to get him back, but we will come up with a I don't know whether it'll be equally entertaining because it's pretty hard to match Ed. But for those of you who saw him in 21 and thought you were going to have a redo, we're going to have a brand new speaker, and that's in the works right now. Watch the website. They consider the website the central part, oscalenational.com, and all of the updates and all of the announcements and all of the schedules and all of the clinics and all of the layout tours and all of the side trips will all be on that, and we are updating it on an almost daily basis now. June 8 to 11. We have a couple more days on the hotel reserved block. But if you're going to get a hotel, now's the time to get it, to be able to be assured of a room and the convention rate. Thank you. All right. We have as the centerpieces on these programs interviews with people I would loosely call newsmakers, people who are at the center of what's going on in two-rail O-scale. I indicated some of the people that we've had before, and I don't know that any of them are as well positioned as Andy Edelman, who is our interview this program. Andy has a complicated but direct relationship with Atlas. And as we all know, Atlas has been an industry leader in model railroading for going on a century. Some of you have been around as long as I have. And I was talking with Andy a few days ago. I remember in the 1950s assembling HO scale Atlas turnouts with fiber ties and brass rail. And if you've ever done fiber ties and brass rail, you know that those were the bad old days. But Atlas has been here for a long time. A lot of the things that they did were innovations and improvements on their own product line. They got into O-scale two-rail, not just once, but twice, first with a line from back in the, I think, late 1970s, Andy can probably correct me, and then more recently, in approximately 2000, they remain in O-scale two-rail. They have been working with MTH, which is another industry leader in O-scale, albeit mostly three-rail. And Andy is now working directly with Atlas on what is now called Atlas's Premier line. I'm going to let Andy give you his background, how he got here, and then can segue into where Atlas has been, where it is right now, and perhaps of great interest to us, where it's going, particularly focusing on two-rail O-scale. Andy Edelman, welcome.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the opportunity to come on today and meet everybody and give you some input into what Atlas is doing, as well as what I do for them and what I've done historically in the industry. while I wasn't around in the 1950s to put together track with fiber and brass rail, I have been in the industry for 43 years. This is my 43rd year. I started needing a job out of high school in 1980, and before I went to college, so just a summer job. And I got hooked up with Mike Wolf, who was working for Williams Reproductions, Jerry Williams, in Maryland here. And I was running a rivet machine. I was putting together 10-plate standard gauge trains, FM train masters, Madison cars, all kinds of different things from an assembly standpoint, and thinking, well, the summer will be over and I'll go to college, and that'll be that for this. And I ended up come back on the weekends and work. And anyway, I spent a little longer than normal 4-year time at school, but I was working a lot. And when I got out of college, I ended up working for Williams full-time and running his business from 1985, 86 to 1990. Mike Wolf had gone and formed Mike's Train House, which eventually became MTH Electric Trains, and was a big distributor of the Williams line. And my job was to oversee the production and all the marketing aspects. That's what my degree was in. And eventually left Williams and went and hooked up with Mike directly as an employee for MTH Electric Trains. And that was really the start of a lot of different hats. At that point in time, MTH was building products for Lionel. They were doing their own 10-plate line. They were building a lot of the Weaver product line. Joe Pater and Bob Weaver worked with Mike to produce a lot of the products that they were not building domestically. So they were utilizing the same factories in Korea that Mike had used. And my job was to help formate that Weaver line. So any of the brass steam engines, I was behind those, and some of the imported diesels, C628, C630 pops into my head right off the bat as being some of the models that we did in Korea, and my job was to manage all of that. So a lot of folks don't know that. A lot of folks don't realize that MTH was behind some of those Weaver models, but we were, and it was interesting. Almost as interesting as where things eventually transitioned now with MTH growing by leaps and bounds throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. And then Mike deciding 3 years ago that he was ready to retire. And he had a group of people around him that were involved from the get-go, myself obviously being one of them. And we all thought we were going to retire at the same time. And Mike had a different plan on that, and that's fine. And he's done very well for himself. And the idea was to sell the company off. And we just couldn't come to any agreements with any of the suitors that we were working with to buy the whole company. So we ended up piecemealing it out and sold off the HO product line and the S-Gauge product line to Scale Trains in Tennessee. We sold off the European product line to somebody in Europe. I'm not even sure who it was, to be honest with you. And we sold off about 25% of the Premier line and some of the Rail King products, the O-Gauge stuff, to Atlas and to Lionel. Those of you who have been following along with Lionel didn't really see any big deal about that. They kind of like are trying to reinvent the products that they bought from us, some of which have been on the market for quite some time. And Atlas has embraced the product line as being part of the MTH heritage. They call it the Atlas Premier O. And they needed help in engaging and working with the Asian manufacturing facilities that MTH was using and still does use today for what's left of their O-scale and O-Gauge 3-rail product line. So I was a good fit for that, and I have started to help them build their product line out. You've seen 3 or 4 catalogs now since they initially purchased the tools. And you'll still continue to see, stuff from MTH, albeit only in 3-rail, because I'm also involved with MTH. So I wear a lot of hats. Today I have my Atlas shirt on. Last month I was in York, Pennsylvania. I didn't have an MTH shirt on, but I was hanging out in their little booth. In January, I was up in Massachusetts for the Amherst Railroad show and in the Atlas booth. And last fall, I was in the Atlas booth in Milwaukee. So I'm wearing a lot of hats. It's confusing. People walk up to me and want to know what I'm doing today, who I'm representing. And that's fine. It's been interesting. I basically formed my own company, and I work as a contractor for both companies and a couple of smaller folks as well that aren't manufacturers. And all of my team that was at MTH is also contractors, and they work for me, and they do a lot of the Atlas work, and they do a lot of the MTH work. Try to get
Andy, you just launched the spring catalog for Atlas Premier.
That's correct.
And some of that was straight 3-rail, and some of it was oriented for the 2-rail market. I wonder if you might tell us what is currently coming in based on the Atlas Premier spring catalog.
Sure. So I think one of the things to understand about the Atlas Premier 2-rail models basically hinges on what that particular model was designated as when MTH produced it. So in the case of the Atlas spring catalog, one of the models is the SD70 Mac. MTH never offered the SD70 Mac in a 2-rail configuration, but they did offer it with a particular design truck that they call Protoscale 32 truck. Atlas is calling it the same thing, which basically is a convertible truck that can run on 3-rail or 2-rail track with different wheel sets being inserted from the bottom of the truck, and the pickup roller, the 3rd-rail pickup roller, obviously being removed. So in this particular catalog, you'll see the SD70 Mac offered in both 2-rail and 3-rail, whereas MTH only offered it in 3-rail, but with that truck, so the user would convert it over. And Atlas is doing something different, where they're taking and building a new pilot for these models, a fixed pilot that will utilize a KD coupler, handrails that drop all the way down to the pilot level. MTH did some of that, but not every model actually had that 2-rail fixed pilot in place. The SD70 Mac being a good example of one that did not have it. Previous catalog that Atlas did using an MTH Premier model was the Genesis, and it did a bunch of different paint schemes. I think that was announced in 2021. And that's another example of Atlas taking and building a new pilot for that model and offering it as a straight up 2-rail configuration, whereas MTH only did that as a 3-rail. So there's one of the things that you'll see a difference of when you see items appearing in the Atlas catalogs moving forward that are designated as Premier. You'll see some of those models being offered both in 2 and 3-rail, whereas you may not have seen that from MTH, even though they had the ability in most cases to run on 2 and 3-rail.
What is the status of the Atlas master line? They had quite an extensive line of both locomotives and cars.
Sure. So one of the things about the Atlas dedication, if you will, to 2-rail is strong. I mean, they've been in it for a long time. MTH kind of dabbled in and out of it. And Atlas has been a very strong proponent of 2-rail and will continue to do that. They are introducing or reintroducing some of the master product in the new catalog, as well as some Trainman product that was done in 2-rail before. So their focus is to do that. They're starting with rolling stock. I think you'll see some locomotives as we move forward in time. One of the issues that Atlas has to work through is how they're going to manage the electronics in locomotives. A lot of their locomotives in the past may have been offered without sound and with maybe a DCC controller or the option to put one in. The models that they're making now excuse me, are utilizing the MTH Protosound 3 system, which is a dual controller that has both a DCC decoder and the MTH proprietary DCS decoder built into it. And the user simply selects which operating mode they want to go with and use the appropriate controller to do that. And that would be any DCC controller if running in the DCC mode, or the MTH DCS system if running in DCS. So the bottom line is they're going to move and start looking at locomotives from the master line, but they've got to figure out what it's going to take to convert those models over if they want to continue to use Protosound 3 in them, or if they offer them straight up as conventional models ready, DCC ready, that the user can deal with. The other issue that they're working with is where those particular models are going to be built, the masters, the train masters, or the train man, because they're not in the same factory that the Premier O is being done in. I think they have every intention of moving a lot of that product into that factory, but that doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process to get that to happen. And they're sharing that facility with MTH. So that facility capacity has to be capable of handling both companies, which I have no doubt that it is, but it takes a little while to get there.
Thank you. One of the best locomotives that Atlas ever did was their SW8, which has not been produced in a number of years. Do you know whether Atlas has plans to bring that back to market?
They do have plans to do it, but there's nothing set in stone yet. And Atlas is interesting in that they usually have a much further forward-looking approach to things, but they are very cautious about how they pinpoint down when something's going to come. And most of that rolls back to some of these questions that are undecided, like, where they would build that particular model and how it would be configured. But I spoke with the guys over there, Jarrett and Matt and some of the others over the last couple of weeks about, where they're going to go with that stuff. And they're like, our intention is to push forward. They're very bullish on the two-rail market. They're very bullish on those other models. As you said earlier, they've been around for a long time, and they've been in the O business now really consistently since early 2000s. And they don't intend to drift away from that. And really, they're excited about, it's one of the reasons why they bought the MTH tooling, because they really wanted to have an expanded focus on O, both the two-rail and the three-rail. And certainly that SW8 will factor into that as we move forward.
Thank you. And I notice in the Atlas Premier line in the spring catalog is a Baldwin switcher, which was produced at one time by Weaver. And that was one of the products that Atlas bought from Weaver. This looks to be different. The photograph is one of a three-rail model with pilots that move. Is that the same model which has been retooled? Was this an MTH model I just never learned about? What's the status?
Well, I asked them about that and I didn't get an answer.
Okay.
Now, MTH did have an SW8. It was obviously a three-rail model. But I had emailed Jared about it and he didn't get back to me. So apologies for not getting back to you. You're talking about the turntable shot that's toward the back of that catalog. Is that where you saw that?
I don't remember where in the catalog I saw.
Yeah, no, there's a turntable shot and I don't think that's it actually. But anyway, he didn't get back to me, so I don't really know the answer to that question. I do know that MTH had that model, and that was an MTH model when they did it, not the Weaver model. I am familiar with that model that you're discussing, but I don't know if they're going to reintroduce that or not, other than their commitment to continue to expand what they've been doing in O and in two-rail in particular. So my guess is that'll fall back into the same issue that we've got with the train man and the master categories and where they're going to be built. One of the big issues that folks may be aware of is that Atlas had some trouble with one of the Asian vendors a number of years ago. It caused huge delays in the release of some product. And they've been battling, that ever since. They've got the tools, and really it's where they're going to be done. And it just takes a little while to set that stuff up.
Yeah, you may or may not be aware of this, but I talked with Jarrett Hedrick, who is basically the COO of Atlas, or at least that part of the Atlas line that includes O-Scale. And he indicated that prior to COVID and all of the supply line messes and production messes that we've experienced, Atlas actually was having O-Scale produced in, I think, 4 different factories. And for reasons I don't know, none of those are now available for the production that they need. So he is in the process of looking for new production space. I gather that he's trying to use the MTH factory for at least part of that, but as you say, that's capacity limited.
Well, it could be capacity limited if that factory isn't beefed up with additional folks. And COVID has had huge impacts on everything. Certainly, the model railroad category has suffered tremendously from COVID, not necessarily from the disease itself, but for what it did for the availability of employees and workers. And certainly that's a big issue in Asia. And it's difficult to retain folks when there's this huge demand for workers. Asia, US, whatever, everybody is running up against the same problems in the ability to retain workers. So that's part of the issue. It's not really the physical plant. It's not the machinery. It's, do you have enough qualified people on site to be able to manage MTH's line, Atlas's line, the additional Atlas product that they want to move in there. And it's just a bit of a process to get there. And I think really where we're at in the model railroad category in terms of overcoming what COVID caused everybody, we're starting to see that now. We're starting to see releases get closer to the projected delivery dates. The electronic components that are necessary for the boards that go into these products are now starting to become much more readily available. And you're starting to see releases happen more frequently as the components are able to be produced and installed into these locomotives. So we're getting over that slog, and we still have issues with having available employees. And once that is resolved, then I think the expansion will be that much easier.
Two other questions. One, MTH was doing some interesting things in terms of adapting their products to 2-rail. You mentioned the 3.2 truck. You had some steam engines that were available in 2-rail that seem to have dropped off of the market. For the products that Atlas is producing or that MTH is producing that were available in a 2-rail adaptation, are those going to come back, if you know?
Well, you're seeing that with the Atlas product already, and they're making a big deal out of it. They talk about it's a 2-rail offering, it's a 3-rail offering. They're using the same Protoscale 32 truck, and MTH continues to use that same truck for whatever tools that they've retained in their Premier line, the MTH Premier line. I know it's confusing. Atlas Premier, MTH, whatever. It's confusing, but the difference between the two companies' philosophy is that Atlas is really bullish on the 2-rail side of things, and they want to talk about it. They want to include separate 2-rail SKUs, item numbers, categories in their catalogs, whereas MTH is including that Protoscale 32 truck on the models that they have it for, but they don't talk about 2-rail at all. So if the user wants to buy, what did MTH just announce? Premier, what did they announce? Whatever they've recently announced. If you wanted to buy that engine as a 2-rail model, you would have to buy the wheel set separately. The truck is ready to go. The electronics are set up. There are switches to select between 2-rail and 3-rail, but you've got to go out and buy the wheel sets, which MTH continues to offer. Whereas with Atlas, it's a separate SKU and it's got a fixed pilot, whereas the MTH has got only the 3-rail pilot. Even if they own the fixed pilot, they're not offering them that way. And MTH they're just not as bullish on the 2-rail segment.
Is
But you can
MTH
make those models work that way if you wanted to.
is MTH putting out a separate catalog?
No, their business
No.
model is different now. They do weekly announcements. That's one of my jobs. They have been very successful with that model. Back in the day, and by the day, we're talking about 2020, so just 3 years ago, MTH was still doing 2 catalogs a year plus a little holiday catalog. And it would be over 1,000 different items in all those books. And what they found with these weekly announcements is their production quantities went up because the end user wasn't overwhelmed with all of the choices that a big 140-page book tended to give them. So they've gone to these weekly announcements and it's worked very well. And they've done a lot of custom run work. Atlas likes to still do these smaller catalogs, not near as big. But I think they're kind of intrigued by the business model that MTH has done. And it's kind of a bittersweet story for me because part of my background in the industry has been around creating these catalogs, and they're fun to do, a lot of work. The weekly announcements, it's 4 SKUs and then you move on to the next thing, and you kind of lose touch with the line a little bit. But it works for MTH, and you may see Atlas get there too down the road, hard to say. But I don't think you'll ever see MTH go back to full catalogs.
So if you want to find out what MTH is offering, it's what, mth.com, or is there something?
mthtrains.com. If you want to know what Atlas is doing, it's Atlas Model Railroad Company. And you'll see the catalog, like the 2023 spring catalog from Atlas. They printed some, they distributed them to their dealers, but maybe they mailed some out to their mailing list. But primarily, this is kind of the bigger focus where you want to see what that catalog has in it. You go to their website and upload the PDF, download the PDF and peruse it. And they have a delivery deadline of June 7th, or the order deadline for any of the items that are in there. And they, like everybody else in this industry, are really working around a build to order kind of business model, where if you see something and you want to order it, you better get your order in by that deadline, or you risk not being able to get the item.
I can't tell you how.
How much room do they have to store stuff? I know in the case of MTH, they don't have a big building anymore, so they don't have a lot of room to inventory stuff. So if you're interested in anything that are in these books from Atlas, you really should focus on getting an order in.
I can't tell you how contrary to the mentality that most O-scale modelers have, how different that is. But anyway, that obviously, it doesn't matter what you think the best solution is or what I think the best solution. It's only what Mr. Market thinks.
Well,
Mr. Market likes it. That's the way it's going to be.
Yep, it is. Having been in this for as long as I have, you've got demographics that certainly are what I would call old school, where it's a catalog, they want to flip through it, they want to order an item from there, or they want to go get it when it's available by going down to their local store. And part of the shifting landscape in this industry is that local store's not really going to be long for the world in most cases. So really the only way people are going to see things are either old school with a catalog, if the manufacturer's putting one together, or more and more frequently, the introduction is through venues like this, or a website, or social media, and that's how people are getting exposed to the stuff. And it's a paradigm shift for the marketplace, especially for the segment that like I said, like to call themselves old school and want that old paper catalog, and it's becoming harder and harder to find.
I have one last lobbying effort. I'll make you look really good if you do this. So it's you can take it back to Jarrett. The best model that Atlas has made in 2-rail O scale, I think everyone concedes, is the SW8, the EMD SW8. It has a very different mechanism than the so-called China drives, and is quite well respected in the hobby. If Atlas can make those, and don't wait for the electronics. We got a lot of guys in 2-rail at least that do not do DCC yet.
Yep.
And we've got people that have their own preference in terms of decoders. So if Atlas can get the SW8s back into production, that will make a lot of people, particularly on the 2-rail side, very happy, and they haven't been produced for a number of years. So there's a market for them out there. You can look on O Scale Yard Sale and the eBay and so on, and see that when those come on the market, they get grabbed up. So anyway, that's my last lobbying thing. Do you have anything to say by way of conclusion? We do have some people who will probably have some questions. I can't imagine that you and I have answered everything that people might have on their minds.
No, we probably have, and I guess I just would again reiterate the fact that if you're interested in anything, to get an order in, but more importantly, and this is a great opportunity. You've certainly made a strong case for the SW8. That if you are interested in either stuff that Atlas did in the past that you'd like to see, we talked about the master product lines and some of those items coming back. Atlas, Lionel, MTH, Stopman over at 3rd Rail, everybody wants feedback from the end user. So don't hesitate to go to the contact page at Atlas's website and put in what you're looking for, and because they monitor that stuff. I certainly know the other guys do as well, and it's really a great way to get the feedback as to what the market wants, because this market is a mature market in the sense that a lot of stuff has been made. I think if you go back, not to get too long-winded about it, but if you go back 30 years ago and said ready to run stuff, and I know 2-railers like to kit bash, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty, but the number of choices that the O marketplace, whether it be 2 or 3-rail, have today out of the box over the last 30 years is remarkable compared to where it was before. And at this point in time, that was always driven by, at least in the case of MTH, and I'm sure Atlas, the feedback that they were getting from consumers. So don't ever hesitate to contact those companies. And again, you can just go to their websites and do it. You might not talk to a person, but you'll at least get something in writing. Do that because they really rely on that kind of feedback.
All right, thank you, Andy. Who has questions? And what I'd like to do, since we may have multiple people, if you'll put your hand up like that, I'll watch for you and call on you. Anybody got any questions? Joe. You're muted, Joe. There you go.
Sorry. Hey, Andy. I know I've got 4 of the F7s on order, the Masterline ones that were released or announced when you guys bought the or re-announced the MTH line. Any update on when those are going to be out?
So you're talking about the Atlas Masters that they had promoted years ago, and they finally are supposed to be coming out. Is that the ones?
Was their master line, yeah, but it was my understanding that it was a re-release announcement at the same time they announced the first run of MTH Premier stuff.
Oh, yes. You're correct. We did, in fact, I should remember that because I put those into the catalog. So if you go to Atlas, shop.atlasrr.com, just go there. There's a production schedule link on that website, and it's broken down by categories. So you would scroll down to the Atlas Master O, because they have Master N and HO, but Master O, you should be able to find those locomotives. I'm just trying to pop through there. F7s. So they announced in November of 2021, and they are currently projected to deliver sometime second quarter 2023, which is right now. I haven't heard whether or not that's still on target. That particular model is being done at a different factory than all of the other Premier O releases, and I know that that particular factory isn't as fast, but they certainly have had plenty of time to do these at this point. And there may be electronics issues that was holding some of that up. I don't know, but that's where you'll find those delivery things, and they update that about every month or every couple of months, as the schedule changes. So that's where you can find that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other question, John McInerney?
Question about the California Zephyr cars. Are they going to bring them out again, possibly in other road names?
They're not going to bring them in other road names right now. I think they'll run them again, but they aren't going to do them in other road names with this particular production.
Additional questions? Going once?
I have a question. This is Scott. I don't have a
Scott.
camera. So yeah, thank you for the presentation. Question I have, there's probably several questions. For your production, we don't see much coming new from the Atlas Master Line. I think I probably speak for most of us here that we really care about Atlas Master Line cars. The Premier Line cars are good, but they're fall short of an Atlas Master. They weren't intended to be Atlas Master cars. I know originally from MTH, but so what is the status of like producing new Atlas Master designs?
So they are interested in, and in fact are doing some tool design for new models that would fall into that master category. And your description of the difference between the master line and the Premier line is spot on. The MTH line was really never designed with all of the fidelity that you would find in the master line from Atlas. And there are a bunch of reasons for that and whatever. But the bottom line is they are working on some new models that they want to do in master. I don't have any idea of, what the specifics are in the timelines. But again, I'm going to jump back to that issue about where they're being produced and the interest in trying to consolidate some of that production into the same facilities that they're doing the Premier stuff, because the delivery frequency will be better. They'll be able to speed up that delivery in that facility. So that's part of the dilemma that they have, if you will, in terms of how quickly some of this stuff gets done. But they're very interested in expanding it. There's no question about that. And I think as we move along, and again, by buying the MTH Premier tools that they did, they have really demonstrated a renewed commitment to the O line and two rail in particular. So I think you're going to see some stuff, and I think you'll be excited about it. And if there are other models, again, as I said earlier, that you'd like to see, then don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
Thank you, Andy. Are there other questions for Andy?
Yes. How about the track, the Atlas track to rail?
So they are delivering track, and they have been catching up on that for the 3-rail. Now, the 2-rail stuff, I've got to go back and check on them on that. As far as I know, that they're all being done in the same facility. And it really boils down to what they have in inventory or what the production schedule is, but they're committed to that as well. So I should have asked them about that before I came on, but it slipped me.
There was a fairly recent delivery, I'm thinking January, of a container that had a lot of 2-rail track in it. So I know the tooling is still active and they are still shipping. How they make the priority decisions between 3-rail and 2-rail, or between HO and O, I think that's the question. But it is still active. It's not mothballed in the same way that I think some of the master line locomotives may be. Not to say they're never going to be produced, but they're not on the front burner right now.
No, you're correct. You're spot on with that. And I just don't know what the inventory position is in the warehouse in New Jersey as far as the 2-rail track goes. I know they've got 3-rail track in stock. And as David said, they did take a delivery recently. And it's just a question of how much inventory they're storing. We have to be honest when we look at the 3-rail market versus the 2-rail market, the HO market versus the O market. I mean, priorities do affect the kind of quantities that get built and what the inventory position is. Certainly in O, and again, whether it's 3 or 2, Atlas has been pretty dedicated to maintaining a fairly low inventory position of models. Not necessarily so with track, at least with 3-rail, but with models, because they want to move on to the next thing. They don't want to be missing on a production quantity and have an inventory sit around. And again, MTH is the same way, 3rd rail is the same way. Everybody's the same way in that respect.
Other questions for Andy? Andy, thank you very much. Oh, Eric, you have a question.
Andy, thank you very much for this update. It's really helpful to understand from the suppliers and manufacturers' point of view what's going on. And I would just like to reemphasize what David said about producing O-scale 2-rail equipment with no decoders in them as an effective option. I'm buying O-scale equipment and I'm taking out factory installed decoders and putting them in a drawer to put in the one that I prefer.
Sure. Yep.
Because I prefer the offers. And so to hear that things are delayed waiting on electronics for the O-scale, at least for the O-scale 2-rail thing, I think there's a viable alternative there, especially if you reserve the space inside the model for some of the more popular decoders when you produce them. It could be a real nice feature for a lot of us that can do some things to a model to upgrade it or update it. And Atlas got me into O-scale in 1970. So thank you for the F9 and $8 and $6 cars. So thank you.
Sure.
Anything further? Andy, thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. This is important feedback. We need to be interacting with you all. I know that this is a dynamic market. It was complicated by COVID, complicated by the supply chain problems, complicated by the economic and political stuff going on in China. Hopefully we're going to stabilize in the next couple of years. And as that happens, I hope there's still a big place for Atlas in the 2-rail O-scale market. Atlas is coming up on a 100-year anniversary. I don't remember exactly when it is, but it's sometime in the next couple of years. So anyway, thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to good and welfare. We're almost at the end of the program. I do want to recognize we are all celebrities. Some of us are perhaps more celebrity than others. And with us is my good friend Martin Breckbiel, who is the editor of O-scale Trains, one of the regular publications out of White River that caters to 2-rail O-scale. And Martin, if you want to either ask us or tell us anything, feel free. If you're happy just to wave at the crowd as the king would, you can do that.
Yeah, right. After that introduction, I'm not quite sure how to proceed other than to say, hi. No, things are good.
Good. Thank you for producing the magazine.
Well, I have a hand in production, I guess, but I don't go out and actually set up the type and print it. So those days have come and gone.
If you don't write it, they can't print it. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, well, that's a good point right there. I can always use more authors, more writers, more articles. So
I never knew an editor that wasn't constantly begging for content. So Martin is begging for content.
well, begging is a bit of a crude word to use. Recruiting, how about that?
Okay, acquisition, I think, is what they call it in the publishing business.
Whatever
right,
you want to
anyway.
call it, I'll take it.
Thank you for being here. Dan Dowdy was out with a client today. He had planned on being here, but he was not able to make it. We are now into the good and welfare. If anybody has comments or questions about 2-rail O scale or of interest to us, now's your time to chime in.
David, I'd like to just mention that next week, next Friday and Saturday is the East Penn Traction Club meet in Allentown at the fairgrounds. And their schedule looks very promising with a lot of clinics. And if you're in the Mid-Atlantic area, it would be a great event to attend.
Is there a website on that, John?
The East Penn Traction Club, if you just search on that, it'll probably come right up at the top. And they'll have links to the convention and all the details.
Very good. Anybody else? Let me note down in the lower part of my screen, at least, Andy, is Greg Vigiano, and Greg has in back of him a ABA set of Santa Fe F units and war bonnet. You can take that as a lobbying poster right there for the model that he's hoping comes on. All right. Oh, okay. Martin Breckfield just put a text message up. East Penn was, whoops, he took it down. Anyway, there is an East Penn Traction website.
It's right there where you can click on it and open it.
Okay, thank you.
It's in the meeting chat section.
Okay, it was on my screen and then poof, it vanished. But I have those technological problems all the time.
Demonic possession.
I'll take that. Yes. All right. Is there anybody else that's got anything to ask or tell? If not, I want to thank everybody. This is a constantly evolving process. We would like to hear back if you have questions or comments. If you go on the website, oscalecentral.com, you will find a section that says contact us. The president and the secretary are listed, and we would very much like any questions or feedback. Membership applications graciously accepted. Contributions gratefully received. And if you have not spent time on our website, and if you've not spent time on the product guide, please do. We're not doing this for the fun of it. We're doing it for the satisfaction and the good of the scale. And we would be delighted if you would use it. We would be delighted if you would recommend your friends to use it. And finally, one last plug for the convention. oscalenational.com, June 8 to 11 in Denver. It's really going to be a good program. And if you're on the fence, go to the website, figure out all the stuff that's there, and I think you'll find it a very attractive, impressive package. If there's nothing else.
David, one more.
Yep. If this is about those Santa Fe F7s again.
No. On the same weekend of the convention, if anybody's kind of around Pennsylvania and not planning to travel, I think there's an O-scale narrow gauge event in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And if there are other local regional shows, we're not trying to squash the competition on this. Happy to make that plug. All right. Anybody else? Really appreciate it.
Scott. I just want to put a plug out there for the Oklahoma Model Railroad Association. I have no relation to them, but I see they have some cool videos on YouTube. They're building a brand new O-scale layout. So that's kind of unique. You don't see many clubs building new O-scale layouts. I can
Well-
post the video, the link to their video in the chat. You can see now, most of it is HO because they have both an HO and an O-scale layout. However, there are some O-scale videos and they're pretty neat on their construction. I posted it in the chat. You have to browse through again. Most of them are HO. You have to go to the O-scale ones. The big modern style, let's say, not a modern era, but a modern style O-scale layout. They're using spray foam for scenery, which is pretty cool too. That's new for construction. I just wanted to put a chat out or a shout out to them.
Thank you, Scott. And there is a Southwest O-scale show, I believe, October 19 to 21. Joe Norman is involved in that. Can you give us more specifics on it? You're muted, of course.
No,
Thanks.
not now. I don't think, the date is October, is a little bit later in October, I believe. But it's being hosted in Fort Worth by Dr. Mike Ross and Dr. Mike Walters. And it'll be at the private school. I forget the name of it. There's a website that's coming up that has all the information. And it's a really good show, good meet. Everybody has a great time. So y'all come.
Thank you there. And Martin Breckfield just posted on Southwest.
Yes.
Finally, at least from my knowledge, finally in terms of the shows, the NMRA National is going to be in Dallas. Eric Peterson and I, Mike Ross, Mike Walter, and a number of other folks will be working on having an O-scale presence there. We are trying to raise the flag, show the flag wherever we can. Historically, O-scale 2 rail was not particularly close to the NMRA or particularly active, but we have really been trying to build that relationship. They've got still, I think, in the neighborhood of 18,000 members. And anytime I can get 18,000 pair of eyes on something for 2 rail O-scale, I'm going to go for it. So we have been working on that. It's August 21st through the 26th, I believe, in Dallas. You can go to nmra.org and they will and get connected with the convention through that. Going once, going twice. Thank you all for your participation. Thanks to Andy Edelman in particular for his. And we are adjourned in this program. We'll see you next month. Watch for a program announcement. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.